All right, looks like we are live. Welcome everyone, and hello, and welcome to Monday. That's right, it's Monday here on my live streams. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm back to stream today about Photoshop. Actually, I got a fan request. So as I've said many times before, I'm always looking for topics. So if there's something you want me to talk about, stream about, whatever, if I can fit it in, it's great when it's a topic that you guys ask for. So just makes it that much easier for me. All right, Tom and Rudy, welcome on YouTube. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. See a bunch of people coming in over there. I see Victoria and Jerd, if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, I'm sorry, on Facebook, as well as some folks coming in on Behance and Mike Brown over on Twitter. I just saw join. So welcome all the folks that are joining. Also, thanks for watching this on the replay. If you're watching this on the replay, always appreciate it to get the live viewers, but of course, everyone can't make it every week or every day at a specific time. So I realize a lot of you catch this later on. So appreciate that as well. All right, so what are we going to do? We're going to talking about a dispersion effect. As a matter of fact, this request came from a follower on Instagram, and my Instagram is right there. There it is. So go ahead and follow me on Instagram, and you guys can suggest things there as well. But anyway, this person, I don't know if it's a guy or girl, this person asked me, can I do a dispersion effect? And I'm like, of course, I come up with things in my head, what a dispersion effect looks like. And I said, well, can you show me an example of what you're looking for? And so let me show you what they presented me with. Here, I'm just going to go open it up in my downloads folder. I took a screenshot. This is what they sent me back. So I said, maybe, could I do the tutorial? Maybe. Can you show me an example? So these are the 3 examples they sent me. And I was like, oh, okay. So modern style Russ is the person on Instagram that asked for this. So modern style Russ, you're about to get your tutorial. Your just for you and everyone else watching tutorial. All right, so that's what they're looking for, this kind of scattered effect from the subject kind of exploding out or outward. In this case, it's in both directions, in these 2 cases in, here's to the left, here's to the right. And I'm gonna show you some ways to do this. As always, there are many ways to do the same thing in Photoshop. So when I first saw this, the first thing came to my mind is using brushes. And so that's the technique I'm going to use. I just went around looking and saw some other people doing it other ways. There is no right or wrong. It's whatever way works best for you. So I'm going to show you my way, and you can do it whatever way you want. All right, so I see Jesse D and Barb over on Behance as well. So with that said, let's go ahead and close the example. And I'm going to open up a picture that took, I think it was last year or year before last, of Krista. I think it would just make a good dispersion effect. So I'm actually going to open it up from my Cloud Docs. I'm starting to use that more and more. So here's my starting image. Now, it doesn't have to be on a white background, but you do have to separate your subject from the background. So having it on a solid color background will just make life easier, but however you cut your image out from the background, you will need to do that. So just know that, am I cheating because I picked an image on a white background? No, I just made life easier for me. That's not cheating, that's just planning ahead. All right, so with that said, I need to not only cut her out from the background, but I want the dispersion to come off this side. So I need to move her over to the left side of the image. Now, I could do that just by adding more background, but since she needs to come off the background anyway, I'll just move her over. So with that said, let's start with that. We're going to go ahead and do a select subject. That will create just an outline around the subject, and you want to quickly give it a quick glance to make sure it didn't miss anything. Sometimes it misses the edges, sometimes it misses the corners, it might miss where, like a hole in their arm where they're like, it couldn't go on the inside. So just make sure, like for example, these little holes in the hair on the edges here, I know it didn't get because it couldn't get to the inside. So you're gonna have to look out for things like that. All right, so next thing we're gonna do, now that I cut that out and I know I gotta fix some things over there in the hair, I'm gonna go up to my next option, which is select and mask. That will take me into the select and mask workspace. Right now it's showing it to me on nothing, on transparency, but I really need to see what it did. So I need to get into a color. Like you could show it on white, you show it on black, you can show it on whatever you want. But I want to show it on a color so I can see exactly what it missed. So I can see that, yep, just as I expected, it missed those two little spots there and here where it couldn't get inside or didn't get inside one way or the other. So I'm just going to make my brush smaller. Let me fire up my Express Key remote here. And I'm going to make my brush a little smaller. Maybe not. That should be it. Nope, that's rotation. That's why it's not doing it. No, I don't want to rotate. All right, let's do it. Oh, because it's on the wrong one. That's why. Hang on for a second. Technical difficulty here. All right, cancel this. Hold on. All right, let's just get it straight again. And for some reason, I cannot get this remote to switch off of the center one, the right one, I mean, over to what I need. All right. I'm gonna bail out of this in a second. Okay, hang on. Let's just cancel out of this. This is what happens when you're live. All right, let's start from scratch. Reset this. Oh no, here's this. Oh no, I can't do that. All right, close it, reopen it. I hadn't done anything. I just rotated the canvas. So I was like, oh, there's nothing to undo. Let's go ahead and open it back up again. Okay, I'll put the Express remote down until I can figure out why that's not doing what it's supposed to do. Let's do it the old-fashioned way. All right, so select subject. And then we'll go back to select and mask. This time we're not going to painfully rotate the image unexpectedly. We are going to go in and go to overlay, and I'm just going to make my brush smaller the old-fashioned way. There we go. There we go. All right, so now that I've done that, I'm just going to take my stylus, and I'm going to go in using the Refine Edge tool and just come out here and just refine those edges to kind of clean up some of the white that's in there. Now, we're going to disperse this part of the image anyway, so I don't have to do a perfect job, but just some things I noticed right off the bat that need to happen. Okay, now normally when I'm done doing that, I would go in and I would choose a new layer with layer mask. That is my normal default for this. But this time I am just going to do a new layer without the mask. And you'll see why in just a second. All right, so new layer without a mask this time. Normally I would create a mask, but we're going to create a mask a different way. And that will give me my new layer. So it gave me the background turned off. There's the background, the original one. And it gave me my new layer with the layer without the layer mask this time. And the reason I didn't want a layer mask is because if I move this over, then the mask won't be covering the rest of the image that I leave a gap for. So I'll just create my own mask in a minute. So let's move her over now that she's separated from the background. I can move her wherever I want. And now that I've done that, we're going to do two things. We're going to make this. We're going to make a copy of this layer. So we have the subject now moved over to the one side, cut out. We're going to make a copy of the one that's cut out. So to do that, I'm just going to drag this down to my new layer icon to make my copy. And then I'm going to name the layers not only for me, but also for you, so you guys can kind of see. You won't get confused as to which one's which. So, Belle, I see you. Anissa, I see you. Andrea, I see you as well. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So let's go ahead and rename this one. We're going to call this one Subject. So Subject is on the top. And we're going to call the second one Disperse. So Disperse is below Subject. All right, so now I got those two layers named, and the background is completely turned off at this point. I do need it. I do need a background. So I'm going to just go ahead and create an empty layer. And on that empty layer, you can put whatever you want. You can put another image there. You can put just a color. You can put whatever you want your background to be. I'm going to use the Adobe Paper Texture plugin. This is a free plugin as a Creative Cloud member you can get. And this just, when you click it, it just makes a background based on whatever you see here. So I see some gold colors that kind of will match what she's wearing. I kind of like that one, but I think I'm going to pick that one. And if I don't like it, I can always turn it off and also see if I didn't do a good enough job with my selection as well. But for this, it will be good enough. All right, so you can just keep clicking and it'll keep making new layers with whatever color you clicked on. So let's see, did I do that one already? Yeah, that's the one I like better. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of these extra ones. And now that I got that cut out, and now that because this one's lighter, you don't see the halo around it as much, so it's good enough. And we're going to get rid of that in just a second anyway. We've got our background. We can put away Adobe Paper Texture. We have our subject layer, and we have our disperse layer. So, and we can get rid of layer 1 because it created the background layer on a separate layer anyway. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and go to our subject and our disperse layers, and we're going to go ahead and create masks for those layers. So the first one, I'm just going to go ahead and click Create a New Layer Mask, just an empty mask. We're going to paint on that layer to mask out our subject. On the second one, before I create the mask on that one, we need to separate it. We need to move it out. So I'm on that layer. I'm just moving out that copy. I'll move it out to maybe about here. Basically, move it out as far as you want your disperse to go. So if you want your disperse to go way out here, you would move it way out there. But I'm going to move it out just a bit, maybe about that much. I'm also going to make it bigger. So I'm going to free transform, Command-T, Control-T on Windows, make it a little bigger, and move it down a little bit. And kind of like that's the amount of disperse I want. All right, so now that I got that in place, the next thing we're going to do on the disperse layers, we're going to blur it so it doesn't look like an exact copy. So just go up to our filter menu, come down to blur, and come down to motion blur. We're just going to, and you can create the blur in pretty much whatever direction you want the disperse to go in. So if you wanted to go up at an angle, then turn your blur at an angle that you wanted to go in. I'm going to blur it quite a bit. Something, maybe not that much, maybe something like that. So we still know that it's the subject, but quite blurred. Okay, so now that I've done that, I got my disperse ready to go. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to mask it out completely. So the first one we created a mask on, it didn't mask out anything. The disperse layer we're going to create a mask on. We're going to create a mask on that's going to mask everything. So to do that, you're going to hold down your Option or Alt key to create that second mask. All right, so that just created a mask. If you look at your layers panel now, you have the disperse layer completely masked out. You have the subject layer not masked out at all, but you have masks for both of them to do what we're going to do next. All right, so we're going to start on the subject mask, which is the one that doesn't have anything masked out at this point. And this is where we're going to mask out that back part of the image. This is why I said the hair didn't matter, because we're going to mask it out anyway. You won't see it. We're going to mask out that back part of her image. Now, to do that, we need a brush that's going to create our dispersion effect. And I've kind of looked through a bunch of these today, and I kind of saw all different ways to do it. I saw some that look more blocky, little squares and rectangles. I saw some that look more scattered and spattered. And again, if I go back and look at his example, let's look at his example again real quick. If I go back to his examples, like here, let me zoom in. Like those spatters look like paint. These spatters look like paint. If I scroll down, yeah, see those all look, these look more like little shapes, but depending on what you want your spatter to look like, that's how you're going to determine what brush you're going to use to get your spatter to look the way you want it to look. So I'm going to go to my brush tool, letter B. And when I go to my brush tool, I'm going to go ahead and, because that's just going to bring up a solid or a round default soft brush. That's not what I want. So I'm going to go to my brushes panel, and that will bring up the brushes panel that you can see all the brushes that you have options for. And there are lots of cool brushes in here you can use, but I'm going to recommend a set of brushes that you download for free that will, for this effect, will make it look better. So with that said, and this says the Adobe Paper Texture plugin looks like it's no longer available. Oh no, are there other textures that will work? Anything will work. It's whatever you want your background to be. Adobe Paper Texture Pro is something we've been using for years. I'm sad to hear, if that's true, that it's no longer available. but anything would work. The texture is not the important part. Okay, so next up, let's go ahead and let's say you want other brushes. So I'm going to click on the brushes tab. That's going to show me all the brushes I have. And you'll notice when I get down here to the bottom, I've got some brushes and brush presets, some folders. So I have dry media, watercolor, and spatter brushes. Where did those come from? Well, I got those for free. When you go over and you say, get more brushes, when you go to the flyout menu and say, get more brushes, that will take you to your web browser, and it'll take you to the special secret place on adobe.com where if you sign in, you can download Kyle Webster's brushes. So Kyle Webster is now an Adobe employee. He's been making literally thousands of Photoshop brushes for years. And he gives away brushes every year. So I downloaded the 2018 set. And now, of course, we're at the 2019 set. We're also now in 2020. So hopefully he'll come out with a new set for 2020. And I'm not seeing them here because I'm not signed in. But if I were signed in, let me see here. If I were to sign in, I think I have that window open. Maybe I don't. Did I close it? Hang on for a second. Yep, I did close it. Let me show you that window in my other browser where I am signed in. Let's just grab this URL, copy, come over to this browser, paste where I am signed in. And this is what that window will look like when you get there. All right, so when you are signed in, these are the brushes you'll be able to download. So the one I'm going to be picking from today is the spatter brushes. So once you click download, that'll download a little file to your downloads folder, and then you're just going to go to the brushes panel in Photoshop and say import brushes. So I'll click download just so you see it again. It downloads that little file, that little brush file. I would then go to Photoshop and I would go to my brushes panel and I would say import brushes in the brushes panel and go find that download, and there it is. I've already downloaded it once, but there it is, and I would import it. I've already got them open. These are the spatter brushes here. I'm going to scroll down so you can see them. Lots of cool spatter brushes you can pick from. So the one that's kind of like making me think it would work good for this, he's got a few in here. I think Kyle, what's this one? If I hover over it, maybe it'll tell me the name. Super Wet 2. So spatter brushes by Kyle Webster. His Super Wet 2 I think would work good. I think this would also work good. What was this one called? Landscaper 1 I think would also work good, but this is the point. It's your image. You can experiment with whatever brush you want, and whatever you think looks good, away you go. All right. Okay, so anyway, let's go ahead and click on, let's say I start with Landscaper. Now, I don't know if the size is right until I start painting. So I'm on a white mask. That means I need to paint in black to mask her out. And here's another advantage to using, you can do this with a mouse, but an advantage to using a stylus is I can use pressure sensitivity to control the amount of this brush. And if I even go in, I can even change it to control the size as well. So there we go. Yeah, I can just kind of like lightly press. And it's kind of lightly like taking her away, making her like spatterly disappear from this right side. That's why I said the hair wouldn't matter, because we're going to get rid of most of it anyway. And you can just go into your image as far as you want to go in and get rid of as much as you want to get rid of. All right, so that's the exploded part, the part that's gone away. Next, we can go in and we can start bringing back in the part that we want to create the dispersion effect. So this is where we go to our dispersion mask. This is where we switch our color to white because we're going to expose parts of it. And this might be where you choose a different brush, a different size, a different orientation. And the way you would do any of those things is back on that brushes panel. And if we were in brushes before picking a brush, but if you go to brush settings, that's where you can control things like the angle of the brush, So I see where it's controlling the angle down there. I can control the spacing of the brush. So in other words, I can make it vary and look different. I can just pick a different brush also. That will definitely make it look different. You can get into each one of these, like the shape dynamics. So I can control the size jitter. So basically how it sizes the brush. I can control the minimum and maximum diameter of the brush. I can control the angle of the jitter. So you can get into and really control how that's going to look. Now that I've got my white brush, I can just come in here and start bringing back in from that dispersed layer the pieces that I want to be dispersed. And again, I'm just painting ever so lightly with my Wacom pen to bring back in those pieces. And again, this is what I meant by however far out you want your disperse to go, that's what you would do. Now, of course, if you brought back too much, I think I did in some areas, you can always just switch your color to black and just paint it back out. So in areas where you think you did too much or not enough, you can control that. You can also control the amount by going between black and white. So in other words, black is going to bring it back full strength. White is going to bring it, black is going to hide it full strength. White is going to bring it back full strength. If you want to control it, you can either do it one of two ways. You can control the opacity so that you're just not doing as much, or change the color to a gray so you're just not doing as much. So in this case, I want to go back to white. And now that I brought the opacity down, I can, again, play with this and control and layer on how much of that I want to do. All right. Now, I don't like the bottom portion as much as I like the top. So let me experiment with a different brush there. I think the blur might be too much down there, but we'll see. Let's try one of these other brushes. And so if I go back to black, there we go. There we go. Bring some of that back out of here, and then I can go back to white and go down with my opacity. So therefore, I'm not bringing it in full strength. I don't like that brush. Let's pick a different one. All right. Hang on, one more thing here. Let's wrong color, undo. There we go. Let's take some of that off there. Okay, once you get your dispersion painted in the way you want with whatever brush you want, the next thing you might do is remember that that's still a layer, it's still a shape. So you can go do whatever you want to do. So for example, I can select that layer, I can hit free transform, and if I hold down my shift key, because I don't want it to scale proportionally, then I can kind of squeeze it in. I can also go to warp, the new warp in Photoshop actually, and then the new warp lets me define my grid any way I want. I can just start with a custom grid and start plotting points where I want them to be, or I can start with I can go to a preset such as 3x3, 4x4, or 5x5. 3x3 was the old default, you had no choice. Now you have more presets, and of course, like I said, you can go in and define your points where you want them to be. So just by splitting this up, I can specify where I want these points to be. And then once I've done that, I think that about does what I need. Let's do one more down here. Then you can hold down your shift key. Oh, wait, one more. Let's put one up there. You can hold down your shift key and then select multiple points. Now it will deselect the one that was just selected. So I got to go back, click that one. And then you can go in and control the warping based on those multiple points that are selected. So I can scale it in or out, kind of pinch it in or out. That will help with my dispersion effect. I still can control individual points as needed. So if I kind of want to stretch these out a little bit to kind of make them explode in a different direction or a different way, I can do that as well. Let's go back with this one and pull down a bit. There we go. You can kind of shape it the way you want it the way you want the effect to look as it's coming off your subject. So in this case, maybe I don't want it to, I would select multiples of these, shift key, There we go. Pull those back in. Same thing up here. No, I don't want to pull that. I want to go and hold down my shift key. You got to hold down shift key, otherwise it thinks you want to move them. There we go. I can move those in and get your dispersion to look the way you want. All right, so that's just one shot, one way of creating that dispersion effect to get what you're looking for. Again, it's really about the brush. In this case, what I'm not liking is I love what it's doing up here. I'm not liking what it's doing down here. So I might, in this case, I might first of all, restore that, completely gone again. Duplicate that layer one more time and bring it back over, and don't blur it as much. So in other words, because what I'm not liking is the blur. So in this case, what I would do on that one is go back to white. Oops. On the mask, not the subject. There we go. And kind of get rid of the part that I don't like. There we go. And go back to our original image. Duplicate that layer one more time. Delete the mask on the copy. Delete the mask. There we go. Ooh. And that's fine as long as this one's above it. Or not. That one's masking that. This one should be masking this one. Turn that one off. Apply the layer mask. That's what I want. Okay, so apply the layer mask to that one, and then I can free transform this one. If I turn it back on, I can free transform it. There we go. And then I can, I see my problem. I'm not doing it on the right layer. Oh, let's get rid of that. I want it on the subject layer, not the disperse layer. There we go. All right, so now we'll just go ahead and apply that one. There we go. And now on my subject layer, free transform again, my copy that is. Bring that back over to where we got that part, the part that I need. Add a mask to that part so it masks it completely out, like so. And then I can disperse that part again in a different way. Since it's not blurred, we won't get that blurring effect. We'll only get the disbursement. And then I can control what I want that blur to look like based on a separate blur filter. So let's go to filter, blur, motion blur. And now I can control how much of that blur I want and how much opacity I want. That's a lot better. A lot better. All right, that's more of what I would be looking for, and then I would do some more spattering on that part of the image. But you get the idea. You can just go crazy with doing this on any image. Again, it's about how much of it you want to disperse, how far out you want it to go, how much opacity you want. And keep in mind, these are all separate layers, so you can still control every aspect of it. So if you don't want your dispersion to be as strong as it is, remember you can always lower the opacity of that layer. There we go. Let's bring that down. And that's the bottom portion. That's our subject. And there's our dispersion. There's our dispersion. All right. Lower the opacity on that. And bring in or as much, bring back as much as you want. All right. And let's bring that one there. Just doing a little organization for the layers. All right. And you've got your, oops. You've got your background, whatever you want it to be. Okay, so there's our just one example of our final image using that dispersion effect. Again, I play around with the outfit some more. That part I'm still not happy with. So for right now, I'm just going to turn that part off because it's going to bug me if I don't. And then we'll just leave it at that for now because I want to go back and play with that some more. All right, so the person on Instagram, thank you for the topic suggestion. Always looking for more topics, more things to do, always more fun. So with that said, Valentine says that is slick. Let me see, I got some more, let's see if I got any more questions over here on Facebook. Let's see more things. Finally upgraded to 2020. Vanessa loves cowl brushes. I love cowl brushes too. All right, and Colleen's do a quickie on installing new brushes. I think I covered that, but let me know if I didn't. And Scorpio, welcome as well. All right, spell check error. Hello, thank you. All right, cool. How can you make dispersion? The motion is becoming part of the image. So how can you, question is, how can you make the dispersion looks like as though it's becoming more of the image? So one of the things you can do is on that layer mask or on a different, let's say you apply that as the dispersion, the way you want it to look. Now you want to blend it into your subject, so you can create that as another layer and then add a layer mask with a gradient so it blends more into the layer so it's not so harsh going from subject to dispersion. So that would be another way to do it. Just blending. That'd be the easiest way. All right, and that's a good option as well to apply to it. So there's not that harsh subject dispersion. It kind of fades more into it. And again, that would be done with a mask. Now you're making me want to do it. All right, so, but I'm going to cut this one off because we're over time. All right, but anyway, just put the dispersion on a layer without the mask, apply a new mask, put a gradient on it so it blends into the other subject. All right, with that said, cheers everyone. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. Good question and good questions. All right, guys, take care. Have a good one.